Okay, so we are back with you. We have Mig Burgess with us this afternoon, who is going to be introducing Richard Pilbrow. Mig is an ABTT trustee. She's also a lighting tutor at Guildford School of Acting and incredibly passionate about training the next generation of theatre technicians. She has been absolutely vital in putting together the seminars that you've all been attending over the last few months. I just want to take this moment to say a massive thank you for all of your help. And I will pass over to Mig so that she can introduce Richard Pilbrow.
Hi everyone, hello. I get the slightly more informal section, which is brilliant. So I hope you all had a chance to go and get a refreshment and have a comfort break. I just wanted to plug my white light mug, Brian, if you're out there, so I'm well on brand. So it's my job. I have this great honour of hosting and introducing our speaker for the seminar section of today's proceedings. I just wanted to take this opportunity to say that if you told me 20 years ago as a young lighting designer student that 20 years later I'd get the chance to introduce the author of all the books that I read whilst I was at university, I'm not sure that I would have actually believed you. I spent my early career reading Richard's books, and I know that my current students still use his published books to enhance their learning, so they're still very relevant today. So I'm not embarrassed to say that I'm a little starstruck today doing this introduction. So let me formally introduce you to Richard Pilbrow, who will be delivering a seminar talk today called Social Distancing, Oh No You Can't. Richard is a pioneer stage lighting designer. He is an author. He's also a producer and a theatre design consultant. He founded Theatre Projects in 1957, and he is a preeminent theatre consulting organisation. Richard was also chosen by Laurence Olivier to be the theatre consultant for the National Theatre. He's written lots of books, stage lighting and stage lighting design, which are still very, very relevant texts today. He also wrote the Walt Disney Concert Hall Backstage Story, and in 2011 he wrote a theatre project, A Backstage Adventure. So lots of different diverse books to read. So Richard's got lots to talk to you about today. Richard will also be sharing his screen. When he shares his screen, you'll notice that the panelists all juggle around. Don't worry about that. I know that he's got lots of exciting things to show you. There will also be a chance to ask him questions. So I encourage you, as they pop into your head, to go down to the Q&A tab and pop them in there. And I will absolutely do my best to fit all of those in. So Richard, great honour and privilege to introduce you today. Oh, Richard is doing the Zoom fatale thing of not having his, you need to unmute. Lovely.
Yeah, there we go. My turn. Wow. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me, obviously, to address this distinguished meeting of the AGM of the ABTT. It seems, and it actually is, a very long time ago since the first ABTT meeting that happened in my little office in Goodwin's Court in 1961, probably before any of you were born. Of course, I dearly wish we were meeting today under happier circumstances. I guess I'm the luckiest ex-stage manager, producer, lighting designer, theatre consultant that I ever met. I was struck by the theatre bug when I was about 14. I loved theatre. That whole process of collaborating with so many brilliant colleagues. And I've had an amazing life, from Sir Laurence Olivier to Liz Taylor, Harold Prince to Julie Andrews. Today, when to my shocked surprise, I find myself a very old man, our world of theatre faces an unprecedented crisis. Of all the amazing people I've met over a 65-year career, some, of course, have passed away, but almost all the rest are without gainful employment. Our audiences too are bereft. Now I'm going to show you a few little pictures, if I can sort this out. Here we go, which also, where the hell's it gone? Wait a minute. Uh-oh, hold on, everybody. Where?
Green button, Richard. It says share screen. It's the big
I
green
know.
one at the bottom. There you go.
Ah, there we go, that one. Right. Okay. Okay. According to Oxford Economics, a clever think tank, it's estimated that in Britain alone, the theatre industry in 2020 saw a decline in revenue of about £3 billion. That's the money that I hoped you were all going to be earning. So today, I'm going to talk about this new plague and our world of theatre. The coronavirus is an unfolding catastrophe to really the whole of humankind. But for theatre that relies upon the gathering of people, it's potentially a death knell. Corona is, why can't I change slide? Uh-oh, I need some help, please. Ah, there we go, right, okay. That's our friend, the coronavirus. It's deadly. It may be asymptomatic, giving no sign of its presence while secretly infecting all in its reach. It may injure your ability to breathe. It may corrupt your blood, damage your brain, or simply kill you. Well, unknown about this disease. For COVID is evidently spread 90% by air in droplets, tiny fragments of saliva that tend to fall to the ground within about 2 meters, but perhaps more significantly and dangerously as aerosol, like smoke, that contains the COVID virus that may be as tiny as 1 micron in diameter. A human hair is 80 microns wide. Aerosols simply drift through the air and might gradually fill an interior space for perhaps several hours. We're also learning that the disease is extraordinarily dangerous, affecting every part of the body, and perhaps for years. It affects us all, from old people like me to children and every age in between. This is a very, very serious worldwide crisis. To date, social distancing, keeping people apart, is the only known weapon capable of stopping or delaying the pandemic. The search for a vaccine is on. This may take months. Mr. Trump says it's going to happen next week, but it may take years. And then what about the next disease? Theatre has survived for thousands of years. It's perhaps our species' answer to being alone. But we in the theatre must do what we can to actually fight the virus. The plague has struck before, in Shakespeare's time, of course, and throughout history. The last big one was the 1918 flu epidemic. That killed apparently an estimated 50 million people. That's 10 times the present death toll so far. Did we learn from such a disaster? Well, we humans are not very good about learning from the past. For live performance, we need a full house. Social distancing can only be a temporary standby. Long term, it's an impossibility, financially and artistically. Our work depends upon close congregation. Andrew Lloyd Webber has carried out fascinating work at the Palladium, but he rightly said of the socially distant seating that was imposed upon him, "This doesn't work." He had the very good sense to be influenced by the South Koreans' great success in reopening Phantom of the Opera. They relied upon rigorous cleaning, extensive air filtration, and a widespread test and trace system in society. I think my eyes were opened to this potential disaster when I saw these pictures of a test at the Berliner Ensemble conducted into social distance seating, which are clearly absurd. Architects, efforts have been made to sensibly plan social seating, but in many ways it illustrates only how little some architects understand about theatre. I believe theatre must prepare itself in three ways, and in fact, employing three of its most fundamental attributes. It must contain, clean, and communicate. Contain. Live performance today occurs in a sheltered place. Over centuries, theatre has developed spaces that can be isolated from the outside world. Clean. The theatre and every single surface within it, even all the air filling that space, must be cleaned, and it can be, to destroy 99.9% of potential pathogens. And communicate. In our theatre, performers and audiences are all known individuals. Audiences can and should book in advance. They're members of our community. And technology today, I suggest, allows us to know every one of them. They book tickets, and in return, we might be able to check their health. When I was last in London, I booked a ticket for the Olivier Theatre. The following day, astute combination of these factors can perhaps allow theatres to provide safer space sooner. Now, this won't happen overnight. The rate of positivity in any community must be brought down to an acceptable level. The virus must be brought under control. A vaccine is desperately needed. The wearing of masks and scrupulous cleanliness will still be required. Tracking and tracing must be both successful and widespread. But then, with measures such as this, eventually theatres might be seen by our public to be safe. I suggest we need a national plan to reopen safe British theatres sooner. Every theatre person knows that social distancing is impossible. Artistically, it's the antithesis of theatre, and financially, it's a recipe for even worse disaster. To reopen with full production values and quarter audiences is sheer madness. A theatre plan, a national plan, is required. This plan relies upon three essential traits of theatre: a contained, isolated, and clean theatre space, a purified air system, and performers and audiences who are certified COVID-free. The result, safer theatres sooner. Let's look at a little more detail. How would a theatre be certified COVID safe? The stage, auditorium, and linked spaces must be isolated from the outside world and cleaned of any possible pathogens before every performance, as the Koreans did so successfully. Air circulation is vitally important. We should introduce displacement air, preferably from below, with a high percentage of fresh air. The air shall then be rendered virus-free through filtration. MERV-13 filters are relatively commonplace, but higher quality HEPA filters, which are standard in aircraft, will capture 99.9% of those little beastly things. But then UVC light, also a pathogen killer, can complete that cleaning process. Humidity between 40 and 60% and positive pressure between the auditorium and outside space should be maintained. Incidentally, has your theatre checked? Oh, I want to do it. Has your theatre checked its HVAC? Because rather than being laid off, we should all be working on our air conditioning. Next, no-touch infrastructure. No-touch infrastructure should be maximized. Hands-free, auto-opening doors, computerized audience ticketing and programs all should be employed. Toilets. Communal toilets that must be utilized in a short period of time will present a point of major danger. Touch-free toilet facilities should be maximized. Hot air dryers that blow germs around are a disaster. Portable air purifiers might be added. And arrival. Probably timed arrival, discrete lobby division, one-way circulation, plexiglass shielding in some locations, no-touch catering, and in sound and light locks, infrared temperature inspection with arrival disinfection, described by Lloyd Webber for his Palladium as disinfectant arches. These might be combined to ensure that everyone within the sterilized auditorium is currently COVID-19 free. Why? There are even going to be COVID-19 sniffer dogs that we might have to add to our staff. Performers and staff. Obviously, all measures must be taken to ensure backstage, orchestra, front of house staff are protected. A great deal of work has been undertaken. Okay. A great deal of work has already been undertaken by organizations like USITT and ABTT into protocols for safe working. But back to our audience. We know our audience in advance. They are our enthusiastic supporters. And as detection techniques improve, advanced ticketing might be combined with a medical passport, COVID-free certification into an integrated audience database system. Such systems might be used to monitor every person within the theatre building in real time. All audience will be booked in advance. Audience members might be in possession of a theatre app, perhaps in collaboration with Google or Apple, that provides data on the audience member's name, address, and tracing information, and on a strictly confidential basis, their health status with date and time of last COVID testing. On making a booking, the seat position and number will be added to the existing data. This might allow us to give rewards. Is detected later, the app database will allow the immediate information to be distributed to any holder of nearby seating to allow them to take their own personal protective action. Now, of course, COVID apps are springing up all over the world by the thousand. So far, there are many concerns about their reliability and with issues of privacy, but they will improve and likely will gain acceptance. I'm suggesting that our audience are eager to get back to us and will, I venture, be eager to join. So summing up, I stress these proposals are about changing the public perception of theatre in addition to actually achieving virus mitigation. Any solution must be comprehensive. Our challenge in the future will be to overcome widespread public perception of danger in public places. This is a hell of a steep mountain to climb. How to turn the perception of closed space compared to open air space from dangerous to safe. I believe our audiences want theatre to return, but we must work together through investment, engineering, skillful management, and good common sense. Many of the engineering or architectural issues will be hard to achieve in an older building. For all theatres, there will be inevitably added expense in both capital and operational cost. Investment will be needed by already cash-strapped organisations. There are also a tidal wave of managerial, insurance and financial challenges to be considered. But I suggest if a sufficient part of the above can be achieved, this might be the holy grail to future theatre. Expensive, yes, of course, but a dark or a 30% capacity theatre will be far, far, far more costly. Meantime, in the UK, government action is needed. Theatre need a date by which full opening will be allowed. As Andrew has said, give us a date, mate. But concerted industry action is needed too. From here where I am in the US, I hear only depressing stories of Britain's closures, bankruptcy, and woeful tales of layoff and unemployment. Only Lloyd Webber seems to have demonstrated publicly any really powerful initiative. From afar, the rest of the industry seems strangely silent, preoccupied with their layoffs. What happened to our leadership? Surely theatre must find the spotlight, aggressively accentuate the positive, harness the extraordinary talent of our creators, take action and strive to reopen our theatres. Back to work is what we need. This month, two magazines, ABTT Sightline and Light and Sound America, will carry longer versions of some of these thoughts. They both contain links to many papers that examine these COVID issues. Many of the top brains in the engineering and medical worlds are wrestling with these problems. We are a small part of a global effort. For assistance in preparing this paper, I must thank Gary Poole of Stantec Engineers in Houston, Texas, and Michael Holden, chairman of the British Institute of Theatre Consultants, with many, many other colleagues I've consulted. I must stress the conclusions that I've drawn herein are entirely my responsibility. Those who know me will know that I am no engineer. I think dreamer might be a more accurate description. These thoughts are to stimulate investigation by others far more expert than I in the search for safer theatres sooner. Thank you. And after this gloomy catalogue of problems, I'm going to end with my grandson to cheer you up. Thank you. End of sharing.
Richard, thank you very much. He shared that paper with me, so that's just as interesting the second time round, having read through it the first time, so thank you very much. We actually do have a couple of questions, Richard, which I'm gonna I've got loads to ask, so do please get your questions in, otherwise I'm just gonna really enjoy asking Richard some questions. So Ben's got a couple of questions on here, they're both really good. So Ben is talking about how France recently announced that live events can return without social distancing, apparently with audiences up to around 5,000, so long as strict health measures are in place, such as sanitation and masks are followed. Do you think this is something that we might soon see in the UK, or do we just need to adapt to the French approach?
I hadn't heard about that.
No, I hadn't. No, yeah,
no, that's wonderful news. I think what I'm trying to stress is that it has got to be comprehensive. I mean, Andrew proved with the Palladium that you can clean a place. I mean, Andrew actually said about the Palladium experiment, the air inside the Palladium was far better than it was in Oxford Street. And I think he was right. But I'm suggesting that the last step in achieving something that will really reassure our public is to have them involved. And I do think that the idea of an app that could be a sort of health check, it will take a while. Obviously, it's got to be developed. It'll take a long time and it will take commitment. But that would be the last step, that if you knew everyone in the theatre was like you, a member of our theatre club, and we'd all been tested, that would be another stage of reassurance. Because this is what it's about. People want to come back, but are they going to be too frightened to do so? I think they want to come back.
I think you're absolutely right. I had the great pleasure of going to the Donmar in the UK. The Donmar is opened with and I was expertly ushered by the front of house team, and it was all micromanaged to within an inch of my life. And then I went to a restaurant afterwards where I noted that I wasn't particularly well looked after and I could sort of wander around willy-nilly. I often reflect on technicians are expert in risk assessment. It's all we're being asked to do. So actually assessing risk is what we do. So if we're given a chance to do it at the moment, because everybody's at home. So, but yeah, interestingly, we have a question here from Richard Bunting. Richard is saying, do you think this pandemic will affect the way we design theatres? Obviously, you're working theatre consulting.
Yes, I think it will. I hope that it won't mean we give up the most essential qualities I believe a theatre possesses. Them clean, very clean, and with pure distilled air, which is physically and technically possible. So it will affect, the air conditioning will cost more. There will need to be better planning. Like restrooms have got to be like one-way traffic in and out, which is what one tries to do anyway and has for some years. But all those things are going to influence the design of theatres, and it will unfortunately increase costs, which is, of course, a huge problem.
Yeah, and you also predicted that obviously coronavirus now, but we need future planning for if this happens again as well.
Yeah.
So
it's not going away soon.
No.
I'm sure, like everyone else, I've been at home for 6 months, which is the longest I've ever been in one place in my life. It's deeply frustrating, but it's not going away soon. In America, we're still losing about 1,000 people a day. Now, it's a big country, but nevertheless, it's a catastrophe. And of course, being completely mishandled by the government here. But this is with us for a long time. And if all the predictions about global warming are true, other diseases are going to follow on, before we all get drowned. So
let me twist it to a positive spin then, Richard. Rebecca Morland has a very similar question to the one that I wanted to ask you, Rebecca. If you don't mind, I'll phrase it in my own way, but I will in essence get that question across. So I've been given the opportunity to investigate what is going on in the UK, and there's lots of different responses to the fact that we've had to close. So in the UK, we have Creation Theatre have brought us theatre to our homes via Zoom. So they're almost like creating a new genre of theatre called digital theatre art. Obviously the Donmar opened its doors to a live audience. I think they were one of the first actually, but very different, no cast, binaural soundscape, expertly arranged, obviously very much reduced capacity. There's been the Opera House and the Old Vic doing live streamed stuff. So I think as an industry, we've been quite resourceful in coming up with different ideas, you know, one-man shows, anything that we can do with the current. We've taken the theatre making book, chucked it out, got out the COVID guidelines and worked out what we can get. I just wondered what your response is to that. And do you think that these new approaches to creating theatre have merit and could be moved forward?
Oh, I think they have, many of them have a great deal of merit. I mean, you know, when in Shakespeare's time, when the plague hit, the theatres in London were all shut down, but all the players went out on the road again in their carts. They were only one generation away from being rogues and vagabonds, you know. And while we're told that Shakespeare probably went and wrote King Lear in the country, the rest were all strolling through villages, playing informally. And, you know, we've enormous reservoir of talent in our theatre, and all sorts of new ways of performing will be found. And obviously the whole streaming thing, yes, it certainly has a great future. And every sort of unconventional way of telling stories, which is what we do, tell stories to give people hope. All those are more than valid. My concern has been that I don't believe we can just shut all the theatres, and even more so, we can't do theatres with one-man casts to 1/3 audiences. I mean, that will last for a few weeks, maybe months, but after that, we'll all be broke, more broke than we were before. So we have got to find a way of and allow audiences to congregate within. But all the other things are absolutely valid and essential, and a whole new world might come out of it.
Ben's come up with another really good one actually, and I took my husband out for dinner on the last night of the Eat Out to Help Out thing. I'm not sure if you've heard about this, Richard, but
I've heard about it.
You have heard about it. So
yeah.
The government paid us some money, or took some money off our bill to go and have some food out. So Ben's saying, oh, you know, do you think that would be, I'd like to see that happen. I don't know about anybody else, but if we could get some help to get subsidised tickets or something for our audiences, do you think that that's a good idea?
I think absolutely. We've got to get our theatres reopened. There's a huge amount of work to be done to make those theatres ready to take full audiences. And that's going to need a lot of initiative and investment, which is hard to come by, so which the government must help with as well. But then, yes, subsidised tickets, all those things that can be done to give people the courage to come and join in what they want to do it. They want to come back. We've got to help them.
I think in short though, they need to let us open our doors first before that they consider the
You've got to get back to
get back.
Yeah, we've got to get back to work. We've got to get back to
absolutely
work.
Yeah. Ricky, you've posed a question here. I'm a little confused about it. I wonder if you could just expand on it a little bit more for me in type it again for me, and I'll probably understand it a little better. Ben apparently is going to be starting at GSA, which is great. So I'll see you in the classroom, Ben. But he poses a very good question again about obviously one of my passionate concerns as a course leader on a theatre production course and a lighting tutor is I've got lots of very young, so talented, so enthusiastic young young professionals basically looking forward to enter an industry that is very much closed, and they're anxious about what the future lies for them. So I just sort of wondered what your thoughts are on that, and how we can inspire them, and how in the process of reopening we can still include it, because otherwise in future years we're going to have a massive skills gap of no young and up and coming people.
Yeah. It's an immense problem. I'm a very remote president of the ALD, and I listened to their web broadcasts of their AGM early in the summer. It sort of reduced me to tears. These terrible stories of, what are people meant to do? And indeed, I've a 21-year-old grandson who's a musician. What's his future? It's pretty damn frightening. But we in the theatre are the answer to a universal need, which is to be entertained in groups and to be told stories and to be given little aim and purpose and ambition in life. And musicians, actors, singers, lighting designers, everyone who serves the theatre are doing an essential job. We have got to make our theatres able to operate in all these new ways and in the old ways too. So courage. It must be very frightening. I'm old and retired, and it causes me the deepest concern. But I know we're on, theatre's lasted through every crisis through human history, and it will come out of this. But we've got to do something to make our theatres ready to be occupied by an enthusiastic public.
Ben's obviously, he's said that he's going to start his first year at GSA. He also says, by the way, he really enjoys your books as well. So because your texts are part of my reading list. So well done, Ben, for reading them. Yeah, I think for me then it's almost like a two-pronged attack, isn't it, Richard? So you're very much campaigning for getting what we once had back, the fabulous production values of our West End and Broadway, which can only be financed by booming auditoriums full of audience. However, Alistair Livingston's written here that there's a new generation of quite delightful things. We've been starved of live entertainment and people want it. So Alistair's writing in the Q&A about seeing a one-man performance. So we're almost reverting back to more of a fringe style creation.
Yeah, absolutely.
In that sort. So I think it's a two-pronged attack. So from my point of view, I'm working on COVID compliant, devising theatre projects with my students, but it mustn't take away from the campaigning that must be done to not lose. Something as fabulous.
I mean, the production of Sleepless has just opened, hasn't it, in West London? Incredibly brave attempt, a full musical with a third audience. Well, that's a very brave producer. He has to lose a great deal of money, even if he had the biggest hit in the world. That is an impossible situation.
I don't know if you've heard, Richard, the Mousetrap in the West End is also opening to a reduced capacity audience. I think.
Well, if I may say so, of course, the Mousetrap can afford it. They've only been there, 100 years?
Yes, yeah.
So they can afford to have a third, but most people can't. Every single person working on stage. I mean, a show is put together by dozens, maybe 100 people or more. They've got to earn a living. They're all artists and driven by ambition and love of their craft, but they've got to earn a living. They've got to pay the mortgage. They've got to put their kids through school. They've got to be paid, and the only way they're paid is by bums on seats. We've got to get bums on seats. And I think Andrew set this brilliant example. It can be done. And just taking that a little further, we can go back to full houses, I think. It will take time. It will take time. The disease has got to be conquered first.
Yeah.
But then we've got to encourage people to get out and be brave and come and join us.
Yeah, so Ricky is writing that he feels that the industry is almost waiting for the COVID to go away, but and many expect that we will have another virus arriving, which you alluded to in your talk. So the measures that you're outlining aren't just for now, but for the future of the industry. I'm not sure that's really a question, but yeah, I see what you mean, Ricky. I hope you think we've covered it in that sense. There's two prongs to this attack, isn't there? It's cultivating ingenuity and innovative ideas to keep live theatre alive, but also we must continue campaigning to retain. I mean, if you look at Harry Potter and the fabulous production values of a show of that stature and size, Back to the Future was
there's no one sort of theatre.
No, of course.
The one-man show, the circus, there's Harry Potter, and there's the Royal Shakespeare.
Absolutely.
We've got to get all these back.
We must, otherwise we'll lose
them. Then it becomes one of the biggest revenue earners in British society. It's a huge success, the theatre. What happened?
So Sebastian Barnes, he's part of our training and education committee at the ABTT. He's concerned about the skilled people that are having to find work elsewhere, and he's concerned about the mass jump exodus from the industry where they've had to go and find income from somewhere else. What might be done to help retain them? And it's quite a unique skill set, isn't it, to retain?
Yeah, I thought a very good point made earlier in the first meeting about how theatre skills are incredibly applicable in many, many ways of life, walks of life. I thought that was very valuable. But we've got to open our theatres so they can come back as soon as they can. But you can, with the theatre training, you can do all sorts of things that most other people can't. We're very, very skilled. The product we create, it's all one-off, it's all one of a kind. We always open on time, not like the building industry. We open 7:30 and the date we say. So we're bloody skilled at with many life skills that would be of great value to many other walks of life, but we want them back as soon as possible. And for that, we've got to prepare.
Yep.
We've got to prepare.
Tim Foster has written, hi Richard, he thinks that age could be an issue, that older people make up a high proportion of our audiences and they'll be sort of the last to feel safe to come back, which I think you've obviously alluded to in your talk.
That's right.
So he was just theatre must work to. He's actually written here, that theatre must work to attract a younger audience.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of young people go to Harry Potter, don't they?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Even Back to the Future's dated now, though, isn't it? I watched when I was younger, but then I realised that I got a bit older. So
it happens, I'm afraid.
We've had Ian Young said that. He's saying he's a huge fan of your books, Richard, especially stage lighting design, and he's just singing your praises and saying that he's found them very helpful. So thanks, Ian. I'm just we're getting through them, which is good. So let's end on this one here. The person is anonymous. So how does theatre restart at grassroots? So this person works in a private school, and because of that, it's quite well funded. And they have bigger budgets, so they're able to live stream from their venues to parents and other students. But if investments are needed in order to make venues COVID safe and to be able to operate, how can theatre restart in schools, colleges, and local small-scale venues, which obviously gets our up and inspiring youngsters going? How can they do it with little funding if they don't get support?
Yeah, it's tough. on a very small scale, of course, opening the window is a good idea. You know, so much of it is air, is about the way your air is behaving. I mean, as a theatre design consultant, I've worked with HVAC engineers on dozens of buildings. I never really realized how important their work was. I always thought it was about, you know, just making the place decent temperature. But now their role is to keep us safe. If you can clean the air, you're a long way forward. And that's a thing that I'm amazed it's not more talked about, because that is a key to a big part of achieving safety, which Andrew's begun to demonstrate at the Palladium, and the Koreans have done brilliantly. So we got to do all these things.
And things on this subject, I'm starting to understand the air issue a little more. There is Zippo Circus, a lovely production manager for the circus, was talking me through how obviously the air is much easier for him to handle, but he was explaining how that's an issue for indoor venues. Right. But obviously good to see that the circus is up and running, albeit with reduced capacity audiences also. Right. So but I'm very much looking forward to seeing the few bits and pieces that we do have in the UK open at the moment. So Richard talked about Sleepless, that is being played at, I think, a Troubadour venue. I think it's in Wembley. So if you're craving a bit of live theatre, I know anybody that has their doors open would deeply appreciate the support. Also, absolutely. We mustn't forget an
incredibly brave initiative that should be strongly supported.
We also mustn't forget how important it is to going to support the theatre is not only supporting the venue, but it's also supporting all of the manufacturers, the hire companies and the suppliers, and we mustn't forget the chain of people that the closure of our live entertainment industry has affected. Absolutely. So and we must in supporting the live event, we are supporting those further along and down the chain also. So I think I've got 3 questions that I didn't manage to get round to, but hopefully I'll have a little 2 that I haven't managed to get round to, but I've run out of time, unfortunately. I think Alicia is going to pop back up in a minute. But Richard, honestly, absolute pleasure. I have to pinch myself to think that I'm chatting to the guy whose books I read when I was at university. So it's been an absolute honour to spend this time talking to you. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom, and thank you on behalf of everybody that's here. For you had to get up very early in the morning, didn't you, to join us?
No, not that bad. But thank you. It's been a great honour to talk to you, and thank you for hosting me so eloquently. Thank you. And best of luck to everybody, and keep cheerful, folks.
Well, I just want to say a massive thank you for joining us, Richard, especially with the time difference, and Mig for hosting the session as well. You did that fantastically with all those questions coming in, so thank you. Robin, did you have anything to say before we sign off for the day? You're on mute.
Being proper. We should also thank, so I echo the thanks to Richard, to Mig, and to you, Alicia, for helping us today, to everybody who joined us and participated in both the AGM and in Richard's very, very interesting discussion of possible ways forward. He did mention that he has a longer article on the same themes appearing in the edition of Sightline, which will be with you very shortly. And we should also thank Joanne, who has been our live captioner this afternoon and has been keeping up with, on occasions, some of our esoteric language that we like to use in the world of theatre. So thank you very much indeed, Joanne, for that. But that brings us to the conclusion of today's programme. So thank you to everyone who's joined. There are a number of resources that Alicia has put into the chat. And if anybody would like to follow anything up, please do contact us at the office email address. which is also in the chat and can be found all over the website.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.